Thank you for joining us today. My name is Lena Fedisi. I'm the Student Services Specialist Senior. I work in the Student Leadership Center. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you today to our Black History Month celebration. Today we have a very close friend and one of our own presenting as well, and it's Rorvis Gilmore. Before I talk, on the screen you can see that he'll be talking about Black Wall Street, but before he gets into his presentation, I'd like to give you a brief introduction of Mr. Gilmore. Rorvis Gilmore is a first-generation college student. He attended Estrella Mountain Community College, where he obtained an associate's in arts. He attended Northern Arizona University and received a bachelor's of science with an emphasis in communication studies. He was a student, while working at EMCC, he was a student ambassador in their student life office, and now is currently working as a lead coach in the GCC peer success coach program, which is close to my area over here. He's a member of the Phi Theta Kappa, Sigma Chi Eta, and Lambda Pi Eta, of which are all honors organizations, both at the community college level and at the university level. Please welcome Rorvis Gilmore, Jr.
Well, thank you for the lovely introduction. Well, good afternoon, everybody. So, like she said before, my name is Rorvis Gilmore Jr. I have the honor and distinction of presenting the this Black Wall Street presentation. This is something that I am truly passionate about, that I researched on most of my higher ed academic career, as well as how everything started in high school. So with that point, I want to start off with talking about how it was discovered, how I discovered it, and it's all thanks to my dad. Just like a couple of things I learned about, like with Juneteenth and other things, it's about a trip to the library and looking things up. And he told me to look up Black Wall Street one day, and I looked it up, and I got to find out what it was, and I was shocked that this piece of history wasn't taught or just like wasn't known. So that's why I make it my duty to present this information every time I can. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I want to give you a brief overview of what we're going to be going through. We're going to talk about what Black Street was, what actually happened June 1st, 1921, a telling from a story, the aftermath, and how it became more mainstream with in different mediums. The next thing I want to talk about is the whole color coordination of this presentation. This is Langston University's colors. That is the first only HBCU in Oklahoma. Notable alumni that I wanted to mention that you may know of is NFL Hall of Famer Chad Johnson, the wide receiver, as well as Oscar-winning actress Jennifer Hudson. Both of them attended. Neither graduated, but they definitely went there. The next section I want to talk about, before I get way too in depth about Oklahoma's Black Wall Street, is that I found out through information last time I presented that there were others, and that's something that we should definitely highlight before I get into the others. Before I get into Tulsa. Notable ones was Bronzeville in Chicago, Haiti in Durham, North Carolina, Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, West 9th Street in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Ferris Street in Jackson, Mississippi. But one of the most notable ones that's like right under Tulsa for recognizability is Jackson Word in Richmond, Virginia, which is considered the first Black Wall Street to emerge around the turn of the 20th century, established in 1871. Jackson Ward District became known as the Harlem of the South. And then one notable person to highlight from that section is Maggie Lena Walker, the first Black woman to be the president of a bank. Her bank was the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank. She also ran a newspaper, department store, and life insurance company. So you can tell she was definitely a very impactful woman of color. And as of March 2021, PayPal created an award named after her called the Maggie Lena Walker, named after Maggie Lena Walker to honor trailblazing women doing work that empowers marginalized communities. Now to get into Tulsa. Now, Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma was located in the neighborhood of Greenwood, Tulsa. Black Wall Street was a symbol of black accomplishment. It was one of the wealthiest black communities of America for 15 years. And then in 1920, the city directory listed 108 business establishments, including 4 hotels, 22 churches, a Mazagata Lodge, and 2 movie theaters. Just to show you, highlight some of the businesses that were there. Now I want to go into their roots, and this starts with these 2 founding fathers, one being Ottawa W. Gurley, as well as John the Baptist J.B. Stratford. Ottawa was born December 21st, 1875 in Huntsville, Alabama. He moved to Tulsa in 1905, where he purchased 40 acres of land, which was only to be sold to coloreds. Black ownership was his black ideal for black ownership was ahead of its time. His portfolio is estimated to be worth more than $150,000 at the time, or nearly $5 million today in today's dollar. Dr. Carter, a theologian, told Inc. magazine that out of 600 businesses in Tulsa, Gurley owned at least 100 as a result of demand and need. Gurley built a boarding house in 1906 at the end of a dusty trail later named Greenwood Avenue, followed by a grocery store which he supplied with meat and produce from his farm that was from his 80-acre farm. He then built 3 two-story buildings, which was housed by a barbershop, a cafe, and a pool hall, and a cigar store, and a hotel. So he owned a lot of businesses in this area. The next person, John, was born in Kentucky in 1861. He graduated from Abilene and Indiana Law School, then moved to St. Louis and Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, where he opened pool halls, shoe shine parlors, bathhouses, and boarding houses. After one of his hotels went bust, he later moved on to Tulsa in 1899 and began planning the creation of the black community on the outskirts of town. So that's how these 2 unionized in Oklahoma. And then in the early 1900s, because of their efforts, Booker T. Washington visited Greenwood, and he saw how successful the town was and called it Negro Wall Street, later to be dubbed Black Wall Street, because that sounds a lot better than Negro. Between 1910 and 1920, the Tulsa population nearly quadrupled to more than 72,000, and the black population rose from below 2,000 to almost 9,000. And then because of this, some white Tulsans will refer to Black Wall Street or Greenwood as Little Africa. And now I just want to highlight some of the greatness of Black Wall Street, luxury. We had people all walks of financial status. So we had, the rich, the middle class, and the poor, all alike on this one block. Now I want to get into the incident that occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, on the morning of May 30th, 1921, a young black man named Dick Rowland was riding in an elevator in the Drexel building at 3rd and Main with a woman named Sarah Page. Now, the details that followed vary, and there's different tellings from person to person, but accounts of incidents circulated amongst the city where the white community during the day became more exaggerated each telling. So, kind of like a game of telephone where the information got passed on, got worse and worse and worse and worse. But by May 31st of that year, the Tulsa Tribune reported that a black man, Dick Rowland, attempted to rape the white woman, Sarah Page. The whites in the areas refused to wait for an investigative process to play out, and sparking of 2 days of unprecedented racial violence. Now, the next few images I'm going to be showing are just some of the images that occurred during the event, but it may, be a little graphic, but, we just have to go through history and go through this all together. Now, tensions were high, and some of the residents of Greenwood were former World War I veterans. They brought their guns out and were posted outside the jail to prevent a probable lynching of Rowland. Shots were fired, and then a white man was shot, and that ignited all this to occur. In the early morning hours of June 1st, Greenwood was looted, burned by white looters, and it estimated that 10,000 white people flooded into Greenwood, looting, burning, shooting, and in some accounts, bombing black residents. Governor Robertson declared martial law, and the National Guard troops arrived in Tulsa. Guardsmen assisted firemen in putting out fires and took African Americans out of the hands of vigilantes, imprisoned all the black Tulsans who were not already interned. So they just gathered them all up together, somewhat from their own safety, but, not being able to protect their own property, that means more things were stolen from them. Over 6,000 people were held at the convention hall and the fairgrounds, some as long as 8 days. So 8 days worth of not being able to go back to your home or do anything that you want, being somewhat in prison, and, things are just gone from your home. And then it was estimated that at least 35 city blocks went up in flames. The defense of white women, white female virtue was expressed as the motivation for the collective racial violence, but that seems to be the case of a lot of his incidents in history, and a lot of times that does not actually add up. From my research, that just seems to be the kind of like the excuse to already built up tension and jealousy of a group of people that you were thought to be superior than. So now, no further, I'm going to continue with the images. And please tell me what looks like a quote-unquote race riot to you. Now, they called this a race riot, and I just showed you just a few images. Most African Americans and people that want to speak the truth about the incident call it the Tulsa Massacre, which it was. So now I'm just going to continue showing you images from the, what happened afterwards and aftermath. Some might get a little. As you can see here, this is some of the people that were gathered up. And now I do have a video I want to show you. This is just going over the history. It's about a few years old. To give insight, it sparked more news about the incident during its anniversary around the time George Floyd's passing, murder, and then it kind of brought back the history. So CNN did a whole little video about it, so I just think it's a good video for us to all watch together. Is the audio not on? Yeah, that's what I said too. That's not even working. There we go. Can we try again?
Terrence Crutcher was shot and killed by police. Hundreds protested here in Tulsa. What many didn't know is that nearly 100 years ago, on these very streets on which they were marching, hundreds of African Americans were killed in one of the darkest chapters of Tulsa's and America's history. A lot of folks around here used to whisper about it over the decades, but nobody, black nor white, wanted to talk about it. And that history was being forgotten. Before it happened, Tulsa was the scene of a thriving, wealthy black community.
Black Wall Street was the most prosperous black-owned business district in 1921.
This was Black Wall Street. There were hundreds of black-owned businesses, everything from banks to pharmacies to the doctor's office. And black folks were making really good money. There were even 2 movie theaters, all black-owned and operated. Segregation was in full effect. We heard that there was a gentleman who owned a plane. Is that true?
Simon Barry was a pilot and owned his own plane.
Black folks were rich here, basically. They lived very good lives.
Many of them, yes. Yes, which caused some envy and anger among white people who commented, how dare those Negroes have a grand piano in their house and I don't have a piano in my house.
1921 rolls around. What happens?
Some type of confrontation between blacks and whites was inevitable because of the racial climate at that time, because of the presence of the Ku Klux Klan in almost every aspect of our society. But on this particular day, May 31st, 1921, a young black male named Dick Rowland, who worked as a shoe shine boy in downtown Tulsa, went into the Drexel building where he had been given permission to get water and use the restroom. There was a young white girl named Sarah Page who was an elevator operator. And Dick Rowland every day would go into the elevator with Sarah Page. On this particular day, after the elevator doors closed and Sarah Page and Dick Rowland were alone in the elevator, a few moments later there was a scream, the elevator doors opened, Dick Rowland ran and was later arrested, and Sarah Page initially claimed that she had been assaulted.
Brown says Page never pressed charges, but authorities did, and the damage was done. By the end of the day, the rumor mill said Page had been raped.
As word spread, angry whites were determined that they were going to take matters into their own hands.
A large crowd of white residents gathered at the courthouse. They demanded Dick Rowland be lynched. How did the black community respond to that demand to lynch this young man?
They were willing to risk their lives. They knew that they would be risking their lives to help defend Dick Rowland. And thousands of whites gathered in front of the courthouse. A white man approached a black man with a gun. He said, "What are you going to do with that gun?" He said, "I'm going to use it if I have to."
The two men argued. There was a struggle over the gun. It fired. The white resident was shot. All hell broke loose.
Blacks retreated to the Greenwood district where they set up a barrier at the railroad tracks and were able for a short time to keep whites from invading their community. But because they were so outnumbered and outgunned, whites eventually broke through the railroad tracks and invaded what was home to Black Wall Street, the Greenwood district.
This was the result. 35 city blocks of the black neighborhood burned to the ground. Historical photos show black residents shot dead in the streets. The historical account is that at least 300 people were killed.
There were children that were here that had been armed by their parents, that had been told that they could come down to Greenwood and shoot and kill an innocent person. Those are the same people that we grew up with in our communities, that were a part of our society.
How many black people lost their lives?
There's really no way of knowing exactly how many people lost their lives, potentially thousands of innocent men, women, and children.
What is worse, survivors say they remember death not just in the streets, but raining down from the sky.
Many of our race riot survivors have commented that they remembered seeing planes flying overhead, dropping bombs, dropping nitroglycerin bombs.
Mrs. Hazel Smith Jones is believed to be the last living survivor in Tulsa. She's 97 years old.
My daddy wasn't at home, just the kids and mama. They came and got us.
Was it white people from the city?
And carried us to fairground. And we was there for about 2 or 3 days.
To the fairgrounds.
And my dad didn't know where we were.
Did your family want to leave?
My mother, you know, with all this stuff going on, she thought it might have been safer with them taking us out there and being with more people.
Everyone called it a race riot. The opinion piece in the newspaper condoned it, calling Greenwood Niggertown. Do you consider it a riot?
No, ma'am, it was really murder. It was a massacre. My grandmother was awakened at night and just told to run. Just get up and run. And they ran, she was only 9, they ran for days. She got mixed up from her family and lost in a chicken coop.
Calling it a riot was convenient for a city run by whites. There's no statute of limitations for murder, but there is for a riot. For the black victims, it was devastating.
They never received any type of justice for losing their loved ones, for losing their homes and the businesses that they worked so hard for, that they built from the ground up.
Every insurance claim from the Greenwood neighborhood was denied. The claims totaled about $2.7 million. Black Wall Street did recover, but never to its former glory. Do you think life is better for black folks in America now?
Yeah. Some places, yes, some places, some places not.
If there was any clearer sign that change in race relations has happened to this community, this was it. During a march for a black father slain by a police officer, half of those marching were black and the other half white, all marching in unison, saying Black Lives Matter. But there are stark reminders of the racism that continues to thrive in some people's hearts. So the marching and the worrying continues.
All right, so going through all of that, I think we're pretty like-minded people, open-minded, and so we can all tell that this was not a race riot, that it was in fact a massacre, and the fact that it happened and it occurred is just devastating, especially to that single community. Now I want to talk about somebody that was from there that was a survivor at the time, but she passed on just a few years later. This is Dr. Olivia J. Hooker, and she was already an amazing woman later in her life, but she was one of the survivors at the time, or people to tell the tale. She got interviewed not that long ago before her passing, so that's why I'm going to take some of her comments from the interview. And she was asked about what happened, and she mentioned that her father's store was destroyed. There's nothing left but one big safe, and it was so big that they couldn't carry it away, so they just left it in the middle of the rubble. They took a hatchet to her sister's piano. They poured oil all over her grandmother's bed. They stuffed the dresser with ammunition. She also went on to say that they had intended to burn and destroy the house, but they didn't. They took all the beautiful biscuits out of the oven and threw them in the mud. They broke the phonograph and the Enrico Caruso records her mother had received as a gift from someone from studying in Hindenburg, Germany. They didn't appreciate having anything classical. Just took all the silverware that my mama had just got for Christmas, the coffee, the pot, the teapot, that all the beautiful stuff, anything that looked precious, they took it. Her family then would move on to Topeka, Kansas. Just to note that she was a great woman, like I was saying. She went on to have get her doctorate. She went on also to be in the Coastal Guard, and as you can see, she was awarded by President Barack Obama. Now we're gonna go in talk about the aftermath, which leads into what happened. In the hours after the Tulsa race massacre, all charges against Dick Rowland were dropped, and police concluded that Rowland was most likely stumbled into Paige or stepped on her foot. He was kept safely under the guard of the jail during the riot, and he left Tulsa the next morning, reported to never return ever again. Some of the damages that occurred at Black Wall Street, that up to 1,256 houses were burned, 215 others were looted but not torched. 2 newspapers, a school, a library, a hospital, churches, hotels, stores, and many other black-owned businesses were among the buildings destroyed or damaged by the fire. Those 6,000 black Tulsans who were released upon being vouched for by white employers or another white citizen. 9,000 African Americans were left homeless because of this, living in tents well into the winter of 1921. And if anyone knows how cold Oklahoma could get, that is devastating to go through. Survivors were left with nothing after their homes were looted, and as you can see through the video, they had up to $2.7 million in insurance claims that were denied, and the number only can go higher from there. And it was about 25 million in property damage was reported. And a research report out of Harvard University estimated that in 2020 dollars, the total financial losses were between $50 million and $100 million now. Now I want to go into what some of them alluded to was the death toll. And official tally of the massacre at the time was around 36 people. And if you know anything about history, is that they love to keep it small before it doesn't seem bad. But if it's around 20 and 30, that means the numbers are way higher than that. So it said 36 people, and that included around 10 white people. Even that estimate is considered way too low by historians. The video said it was up to 300 people, but that died and over 800 that injured. But even then, we don't even know that correct estimate. Many bodies were dumped in mass graves. In 2018, there was a search for possible mass graves in Tulsa from the massacre was initiated, and there have been at least 10 bodies discovered since each search began. And then in 2019, two more were found. So they're still looking for more and more corpses. I gotta go back. Now I want to talk about what happened to our founding fathers that were there. to go into what happened with JB, he was the first person charged with inciting the riot. So a person that helped set up the great wealth and neighborhood of Greenwood was charged, and then the penalty was life in prison or death. He tried to escape, and he did make it to Kansas, but he did end up having to was supposed to come back after police found out where he was. But he then decided to go on to Chicago with his son, Cornelius Francis, and ignored the police demands. And once there, he was able to fight extradition to Tulsa successfully. And he was trying to create more businesses, so he did end up making a candy store and a barbershop and a small pool hall in Chicago. He lost more money in Tulsa, though, so he kind of lost his place in society and struggled with injustice done to him in the neighborhood. He then would pass on December 22nd, 1935. Almost 70 years later, his family fought on to clear his name, and that included his granddaughter at the time, Joelle Stratford. As the evidence about the massacre came to light, it was clear that that he was innocent, and the charges against him were dropped in 1996. So God bless the dead, he was not convicted of anything. And now, as of right now, his great-granddaughter, Laura Stratford, works on to preserve the family's legacy. And to move on to O.W., he became a witness to the prosecutor's grand case against Stratford and another gentleman named Smitherman. He was given orders to and they were saying that they gave orders to get the blacks to congregate and to go against to protect Roland and go against the whites. And the white Tulsans were indicted, but none of them were convicted. And there was nothing left to his name in Black Wall Street. Gurley left to Greenwood to Los Angeles, where he would die in 1935 with little indication of wealth. Now, going through that small bit of history, it's funny that how I didn't really know about it back in 2013, 2012, and as of now, it's becoming more and more mainstream, being used in mediums. Most notably, right here in 2019, in the Watchmen series, they centered the whole series around Tulsa, Oklahoma. So they kind of go back and forth from when the riot happened to where it is now, and go creative freedoms with the franchise in that area. Another one would be I found out was Burning Wall Street, Black Wall Street Burning, and this was produced by NBA player Russell Westbrook, if you know about him. The reason he did this was because he had no prior knowledge of it, being from the West Coast. And once he was drafted to the Thunder, he started learning more and more about the history, and he thought it was he had to do his due diligence to promote the information. Another athlete to executively produce is LeBron James with Dreamland, The Burning of Black Wall Street. And then another, the latest in mainstream medium is Rebuilding Black Wall Street, hosted by Morris Chestnut, where he actually goes into different areas of former Black Wall Street and rebuilds it, so give it back to its glory days. And now here I want to bring in the next lineage of J.B. Stratford. This is John W. Rogers Jr., the chairman of Ariel Investments and the great-grandson of J.B. Tulsa, one of my favorite quotes that he's going to say in this video that I want to show you is that Tulsa proves that African Americans can build great businesses and be extraordinarily successful. Let's wait till that. I gotta play.
I think Black Wall Street represents this idea that African Americans, we were left to our own devices, and as Reverend Sharpton said, when they don't have their knee on our necks, we can build great businesses. We can thrive economically. We have the creativity, the skills, the smarts, the ingenuity to do extraordinary things when we're left to our own devices. And I think Black Wall Street proves that. But, if you go back in history and you go and look what happened in Tennessee during the People's Grocery, where white Americans were very resentful of the success of this great grocery store in Tennessee and decided to firebomb it, destroy it, and then lynch the founder and owner of that black grocery store. So Black Wall Street's devastation was just a symbolic thing that happened, or more than a symbolic thing, something that actually happened in our country, that when we had great success and challenged the white leadership, sometimes they couldn't take it and would destroy what we had built. And you see that in so many subtle ways, the kind of resentment when African Americans start to get a little bit ahead. Something comes along to push us backwards. And so we look to today where we are in 2020, the black and white wealth gap has gotten larger and larger and larger over the last 40 years. We are further behind than we were 40 years ago when it comes to wealth and income equality. So I think that what happened in Black Wall Street is kind of a representation of what's happened since then. We've not been able to build a successful black business community that can stand from one generation to another. We start to make progress, and then we go back down. We start to make progress, and we go back down. And we saw that during Reconstruction. We saw that during the Jim Crow era. You see it today with the lack of progress the last 40 years.
Just to go over what this whole presentation was about, my goals are not to, shame, sadden, or scare. I'm not trying to, just say all white people are bad. That's a further away thing, and it's an in-between thing. It's a person-to-person thing, and it's a more of a systematic thing that's not under their control, because that's not going to be all the case. I'm not trying to sadden, I'm not trying to bring in more black trauma into our community to, just to highlight and marginalize. Also, I'm not trying to scare anyone to thinking like, this is just going to happen every time. We're kind of past that in a sense. People will see that as morally wrong. But my goals are to enlighten. This is something to be proud of. That's something that could be excelled for. I know for myself, learning history is kind of, before college, they kind of make it seem that African Americans, everything has just been bad and there's never been like a glimmer of hope. It's always just been a struggle. And with the Black Wall Streets that I talked about, they're shown that there's been opportunities and chances that, credibility that we can excel. And it's not like we all been broke our whole lives. And every time we tried to build upon it, it was stripped away from us. And I want that information to be brought forth and to be championed. I want to remember those that brought forth Black Wall Street. People like OW and JB are, great men that saw a vision for their people, and they should be recognized for who they are, as well as, mentioning Jackson Ward with Magdalena Walker. And I want to honor them and honor all of Tulsa, Oklahoma, honor all of Greenwood, because it's something that we should all try to strive for, be able to, create something from nothing and, try to pass on generational wealth that a lot of communities don't have. And, that's what's lacking in our communities. In conclusion, I really do appreciate all you that did attend. I know this is a lot of information to process. I know it's a lot emotionally, but I do appreciate you coming forth and listening. I know it's a lot, and I just want to open the floor for any questions, so thank you. Does anyone have any questions or, want to share their thoughts of learning about this?
I think the last time I checked bases, they're still trying, the survivors and their descendants are still trying to get some of the 40, 50 million billion, correct?
Yes. The damages, is up to around 50 million to 100 million of what it was worth. And the insurance at the time should have covered at least 2 million now, but they didn't. And that was just, actually the 2 million was for the group. And so by that number, yes, it got to be over 100 million now. So.
So 8 years later,
Still trying.
I think the simple fact that since 2019 and again 2020 and as recent as last year, prominent African American individuals have highlighted I think it really helped a great deal to even get it on the table, even though it's there.
Yes, yes. Especially people of like, high nobility. So I think so as well. And I think it's just interesting that, it's kind of funny because this is about the third time I presented this and second time here. And the first time I presented was 2019. So that was before even The Watchmen, and something else came out and someone told me that they were making a movie about it. So it felt like, a chain reaction occurred as soon as I wanted to start talking about it. But the more people that know about it, the better. So like I have no issue about it at all. Did anyone? Oh wait, did you have any more?
Just the last question, Mr. Chance. You did mention other similar areas that could be titled Wall Street. How are they in terms of getting that title? Is it just that you have 5 black business owners on one block, or is it by capita income? Do you know?
I don't know exactly how it comes. It's kind of just like a title that's given to the group. Like I said before, the first one that they on record was the Jackson Ward in Richmond, Virginia, and that's because it's just like what occurred, and then it's kind of just like based off of the wealth and like how they see the city. So somebody else will come in and be like, yeah, no, this is definitely a Black Wall Street here, So I can't really say what makes somewhere a Black Wall Street besides, the accumulation of black wealth and black excellence in one area, especially during those times where, in segregation, where, it's kind of hard to be your own success. Did anyone else have a statement or question? Yes.
How do you think Tulsa will progress because of the other treatments? How do you think they're going to be with thrive?
I think if we compare it to other groups that are able to continue having the resources available to pass it on and passing on businesses, and each business being able to grow further and further, we're looking at, some great families that could have moved on and migrated to different areas with that wealth and made a lot of America better. So I think the fact that they deterred that, they knew that like eventually they was going to be able to get to a certain level, a certain status where they had to be treated equally, and that's why it was torn down. So I think we're looking at a kind of totally different America, in my personal opinion. That's not just with Tulsa, that's with all the other Black Wall Streets that are available. So if all those will continue to keep their wealth going, I think we're looking at something a lot different than where we are now. No other questions? Yeah.
Are there other instances similar to this in some towns that are
They're all across America, especially in the South. Honestly, like I said, when I was in high school, I was learning about some things, and it's like I said, if something will occur, they'll say like 20, 25 black people died. Numbers are way more than that, and then they just keep it under the rug. So cases like these are only notable because I guess the wealth is involved, the title, the recognizability, things of that nature. But there's many different, numerous occasions where this has occurred. Anyone else? All right then. Thank you so much again for coming. Damien. In other countries, I can't say other countries. Black Wall Street was more of a African American thing, so like I can't say what was going on in Africa, so I can't highlight that. Maybe they do, but I guess it's a little different based off of like. You mean in the United States? I don't know if there's any titles like that anymore because they kind of like each of them had their own way of being ruined. To go further into what happened to Jackson Ward, instead of it being like a quick death, it was a slow death where they kind of just like started redlining. So they started making so like people couldn't go there or they couldn't get any way out, as well as they made a road, a highway across the whole Jackson Ward. So that just like ruined any business opportunities to happen. So they're there, but they're not ever going to get back to their glory days.
So they've been systemically pushed aside.
Yes. Any other questions or statements that you have about the information? You know, any?
Also for the massacre, if there were black people or why black people's success before
Oh yeah, no, they've been knew about the success. That was why I stated earlier that it wasn't about the white woman's virtue being under attack. That was the cause of it. It was the guys. It was, you know, an excuse to do it. Cause like I said, they called it Little Africa, but they ain't mean it in a very heartfelt meaning. They meant it in a kind of sarcastic way. You know, they're trying to be better. They're trying to be like where they're from or whatnot. So that was just an excuse. That's why, like when I told you about Dr. Hooker's retelling of what happened, they're stealing all the valuable things because that's what they believe they're supposed to have. How come the coloreds got it and we don't got it? Well, I appreciate all your questions. You know, if you want to talk about it on the side, I can talk about this all day. Thank you for attending. And this was recorded, so if you ever want to go back, all you have to do is going to be on the page for Black History Month. All right, so the link will be shown on the Black History Month events page on the website. So please rewatch it and share it with others, okay? Y'all have a great rest of y'all day.